So I was sitting around and thinking about Doctor Who and the fact that I have been a fan of it for over 12 years now. What I did before the internet and how I got into all the stuff and my memories of what it was. And it's just for me, really, because I know that if I'm older and I still like the show, then I won't remember any of this. So I was thinking just to make a video of it, because then I can have some sort of diary, just because it'd be nice to know what started it. I can remember my first ever thing I'd heard of Doctor Who is because the original series, or the series 1 of the revival, was on my dad's birthday, March 26th, 2005, and my grandparents came over, and I was 4 years old. My grandma went up to my dad and said, "Oh, you're going to be watching Doctor Who tonight?" Because my dad used to really be into Doctor Who when he was younger. And I can remember I was confused, I didn't know what that was, so I went up to her and I went, "Grandma, what's Doctor Who?" And she would explain to me what this was, and it kind of intrigued me, the idea of all of this sort of time travel. I'd never properly been into TV, apart from obviously CBeebies and all that sort of stuff. Basically, my dad was like, "Okay, we can watch it later." So when it was on, probably about 6 o'clock, something like that, we sat down. It was BBC One, and it was the Autons. And I can remember being really, really, really scared of them. And for years after, I would be really scared of dummies and all that sort of stuff. It just intrigued me. I thought it was such an interesting thing to see something like this with all these monsters, and Christopher Eccleston is just, I don't know, he was just it just really, really captivated my imagination. And my first thing, I can remember getting this for Christmas. I got my Monsters and Villains book, and obviously this was before we didn't even have a computer at this point, so I knew nothing about the show. I thought that I didn't know anything about the past. This book, speaking of the Autons, it literally contains little pages about all of these monsters, and I would read this. I'd get my dad to read it for me before I go to bed. All of these things, it would have all the old stories, everything about these monsters that I'd never heard of, and I would look at these pictures and it would be so interesting to me to see what this is like, and I would read this again and again and again, and it had even concept art and all that sort of stuff. That was my first big thing, and I can remember for Christmas that year, after series 1 had ended, me and my sisters were both into it at the time, so we got given the series 1, but it was in four part DVDs, and I can remember just being very, very excited to see it, reading all the back, reading the special features, just that I could watch this show again, because obviously I don't know if iPlayer was a thing, but we didn't have a computer, obviously, so I had not seen these episodes since spring that year. So I was so excited to get back into watching this show again. I can remember sitting down every week. There's one that I remember really vividly. We used to have a very little computer upstairs, not computer, rather television in my dad's room. I would go in there, and I was standing up there, and I turned on the TV just as Doctor Who was about to start. It was The Unquiet Dead, and I can remember there hadn't been any past stories yet at this point, so I didn't even know that you could go into the past. But I turned on the TV, and there was the beginning. He was lighting a little candle or some wax. What was it? Gas light. And there was this zombie sort of woman, and I was literally didn't think it was the same show. I was so confused, and I can remember I didn't want to miss a single second of it. So what would happen is I carried on watching for that whole pre-credit sequence, and I knew, and as soon as the title sequence started with the TARDIS going through the vortex, I ran downstairs, so I would not miss any of it. And yeah, I can remember watching every week, and I can always remember asking my dad, and I can also distinctly remember Christopher Eccleston's regeneration in series 1, because I didn't know what was going on. I thought that Christopher Eccleston was the only Doctor. I just thought that was it. When he was dying, he sort of was in pain clearly, and he was talking about changing, and I can remember being really confused at this point. I think I was 4, yeah, still 4, maybe 5 at this point, but I can't remember. And I can remember Christopher Eccleston saying the line, "You were fantastic, and you know what? So was I." And I never understood that. And my dad, I can remember looking over at him sitting on the sofa, and he smiled. It was kind of like, a sort of upset smile. And I was interested. I was like, I don't understand why him saying that has anything, why would that make you sad? And then he obviously changed and turned into David Tennant, and it was so weird to me. So I sat down with my dad, and he would show me through this book and by this point I think I had a few Doctor Who annuals, that sort of thing. He would talk to me about regeneration and the fact that all of the Doctor Who's are different and all that sort of thing, and that was my memories of series 1 of Doctor Who. And I can remember it not as much as the others, but I can remember the Autons really, really well. I can remember the bit Unquiet Dead. I can remember his regeneration, but apart from that, I don't really remember. And something else I do remember, this may have been series 2, but I think it was in series 1. There was a exhibition, a Doctor Who exhibition in Cardiff. It was small, and it was, I think it was only temporary, it wasn't that long. And for my birthday, my dad and my sister and my old friend, we got in the car and we drove down to Cardiff for my birthday, and we went into this exhibition, and I was so excited. I can remember, and they had like the bits from the Parting of the Ways where you put your hand on and it would scan that. They had the Emperor Dalek, obviously very little, the face of Bo. They had all of these things that I'd only ever seen on the TV, and to think that this is what I watched in real life was really, really. I'm trying to think of the word. It was very. I was gonna say inspiring. That sounds so pretentious, but it was a big thing because I can remember seeing from Boomtown Margaret Blaine's whatever it's called, the surfboard type thing, with all of the Cardiff little power plants put on top. I can remember that really distinctly, watching that. And I can remember as soon as you walk in, there was a Slovene, there was a human skin with the zip in the head, and there was a blue flashing light. And I can remember seeing that when I walked in. I was like, oh my god, this is a show, this is Doctor Who, but real. I can see it. And yeah, I think at that point, that Doctor Who exhibition, I got a sticker book from that. I got a few posters of the Emperor Dalek and one of the TARDIS, which actually I still have in my room today. That was the point that really changed me as a fan. August 2005. I just knew after that was my show. And from that point on, yeah, it was Doctor Who.